Before you guys start working on your final, I want you to do a really quick practice of a sphere in oil pastel and also one in colored pencil. So I have my colored pencils here. I also have my oil pastels, and what I've done on my paper is trace around the bottom of like 2 drinking glasses just using my pencil. And I also did my training wheels and sketch those on here just as a reminder to myself how to shade things in. A couple of random notes to create the training wheels. All I did was create like a little notch in the top and the bottom, and I connected the top to the bottom, mimicking the curve of the circle. And as I get closer to the middle, my lines were almost straight up and down with a slight curve. And then to do the opposite side, they always curve the opposite way. Okay, so follow the curve of whatever side of the circle you're creating. So I did those training wheel lines pretty lightly. And what I'm gonna go ahead and do right now is choose a color that I wanna use for my base color for my oil pastel. I'm actually gonna fade a color into white. And one thing I want you guys to start thinking about is the, what color you think is going to best represent the perspective that you're trying to show. So if it's an optimistic perspective, you may want to use colors that are more bright and vibrant, things like, I don't know, yellows, oranges, pinks, even reds. If it's a perspective that maybe is more pessimistic, you may want to choose your darker colors that you have. If it's a neutral perspective, you may want to, or an indifferent perspective, you may want to choose colors that are a little bit more neutral, a little bit more natural. These could be browns, grays, even greens to some extent. So start thinking about the color choices that you're going to make and test them out for this exercise. Okay, now I'm going to fade for this one. I'm going to fade a color into white, so I'm going to clean that off in just a second. I'm going to clean off my oil pastel here. I did not do that before I started. Now my white does not have a wrapper, so this may not go as well as I would like it to. All right, so right now I'm cleaning off my oil pastels on a different piece of paper. I know you can't really see that. All right, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to fade for my oil pastel a purple into white. So I'm going to use the darker of my colors, my 2 colors, to do the base fade, right? Hard, medium, and light. Using the curve of the circle, and then I'm going to bring my white in as my blender a little bit later on. So one of the things I'm going to have to focus on is not only curving my strokes, but also letting up my pressure. So as I am at the outside of my circle here, I'm going to do the hardest pressure. Okay, it's also the most curved. As I go across my circle, I'm gradually letting up the pressure and also less curve of my strokes. Okay, so you can see how here in the center I'm almost straight up and down. Okay, I am actually going to flip my paper halfway through and do the exact same thing I just did. I'm going through this part a little bit quicker for you guys because we have practiced this sort of on and off. And I want this to serve as a practice for you all, sort of a warm-up, but I also want it to be an opportunity to test oil pastel versus color pencil and also think about the color choices you're going to use. All right, so lightest pressure here. All right. And so this is what I have so far. I'm just kind of going back and filling in just a little bit more with my pressure here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do at this point in time is I'm going to flip my paper back around and bring my white in. All right. So my white, I'm going to start it in the center, curve it outward. I'm going to do hardest pressure with this, okay, until I get to this outermost part, and then I will let up my pressure. So I'm curving this way, and I'm going to gradually let up my pressure, letting up right here. That looks good. I'm actually going to clean this off real quick because I don't want dark purple on here. Flipping my paper one more time. starting in the center. Hard pressure here. Okay, so see how I'm really bringing that weight in and fading the opposite way. Okay, starting to let up the pressure. Now, right at this point in time, I do have a little bit too much white. See how it looks like mostly white? It looks like it's blending, but I've got this, you know, these two stripes of purple here. I'm gonna bring my purple back over top of my white, hard, medium, and light, right in this outermost area. So letting off to lighter pressure, right? Just right in this outer area. And you can really see how it starts to create hard, medium, and light, something that creates the illusion of a sphere. So we've really transformed this circle into a sphere. Okay, so that looks about as good as I can do right now for a warm-up. Now, this is the oil pastel. This looks great. You can try blending a color into white, like I said. Now, for the colored pencil one, I'm going to try and do something a little bit different. So what I'm going to try and do for this is, again, I'm going to test out another color combo. I'm going to try for an analogous set here, actually, and let me see what I have to work with real quick. So I am going to use my colored pencils, and I'm going to do this exact same thing, except instead of blending a color into white, I'm going to try and blend two colors that are side by side on the color wheel. In fact, I think I may use, no, I'll try and use this color combo. Ordinarily for you guys, I like to do red and orange because they're side by side, or like orange into yellow. Today I'm going to try and keep it a little bit more of like eye type colors here. I have something that's labeled as violet blue and then a lighter blue. I don't know if this will actually turn out as violet, but it doesn't matter. So these two would be side by side on the color wheel, blue, violet, and blue. So if I blend them together, nothing bad is going to happen. They'll transition nicely. I'm going to take the darker of the two colors and do exactly what I did with my purple, except I'm going to do it in colored pencil. Okay. So this may take me a little bit longer to do. I'm going to try and do my paper here on an angle. Here we go. Okay, so for this, towards the outermost side, I'm doing harder pressure. And again, I'm curving my strokes the most. The colored pencils I'm using here are a little bit more intense than the ones we gave you. Okay, so if you're like, I'm pressing super hard and I can't get that same color, I'm using a different type. And if you have better ones at your house, by golly, use them. That would be a great choice. So hard pressure, letting up to medium pressure, less curve to my strokes, right? Lightest pressure, see how I'm almost straight up and down in the middle? Very, very light. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip my paper again because that's easiest for me. It's always easiest for me to do the left-hand side of the circle. So I will flip my paper and do exactly what I just did on that left side. Right here. Okay, so hardest pressure toward the outside. And pressing, I'm doing this kind of sloppily just in the interest of time here. Okay, so pressing hard, most curve to the strokes as I go across, letting up my pressure. Also less of the curve. As I get to the center, straight up and down, I'm making sure to fill that in. All right, so this is my base fade for my circle here. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to bring in my second color, okay, which just happens to be my lighter blue. So again, these are analogous colors. They're side by side on the color wheel. So I'm going to blend those two colors together. And with this, this is my lighter blue. I am going to press pretty hard in the center, and I am going to curve my strokes more and more as I approach the outermost side of my circle here. Okay, and as I get into this area, I'm going to start to let up the pressure. Right now my hand's really hurting. That means I'm pressing really hard with my second color. Remember, this does act as the blender, so we really do have to make sure that we press pretty hard with it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and flip and press really hard and fade the opposite direction. Now for your final, I really would like you guys to consider using oil pastel as your base, and then really think about how you can incorporate colored pencil into your design. Some of your smaller areas, your more detailed areas would be best in colored pencil, but with colored pencil in a lot of cases, it doesn't have quite the same vibrant effect as the oil pastel, okay? So I really do want you to see if you can use the oil pastel as the base for that, for your drawing, but then, you know, incorporate some of the colored pencil into it, you know, for detail type things. So right now this looks pretty good. I'm gonna come back just a little bit and right in this area here, fade it out. So hard, medium, and light right here, just to solidify this fade. And you can really start to see how these do start to look three-dimensional, more like a sphere rather than a circle. Okay, so that is your warm-up for today. Your next step is to choose colors that make sense to your perspective. Again, brighter colors, more optimistic, darker colors, more pessimistic, right? And your indifferent perspective would be more of your neutral colors. So decide what colors you want to blend together for your final, and I would go for it.